Hello, my name is Maty and welcome to the SBL Guru podcast. Today we've got a very special guest with us. Her name is Nikki Richmond, and you may have seen her if you are on LinkedIn, because she's forever posting on LinkedIn with really interesting and incisive posts. So I'll just give her a 1 minute introduction to introduce herself.
Cool. Thank you very much for having me, Maty. So in a nutshell, I'm a tax person. Sorry, but I've trained as an accountant and then gone into the world of tax. And more recently, I help students pass their exams, focusing particularly on wellbeing elements, thinking about mindset, and also those all-important exam and revision techniques.
Thank you. And I understand you have done many years at PricewaterhouseCoopers. How many years did you work there at PricewaterhouseCoopers? It's like almost like a prison sentence, right? Working at PricewaterhouseCoopers. So how many years did you work there? It's an amazing experience, I think.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I was over 15 years.
There you go.
So starting an intern, and yeah.
Wow, brilliant. So today, our first topic we're going to talk about is something I think that's very familiar to many students, and that is stress. And you know, I think stress is the first thing. And what do you think, Nikki? I think it's not something you can really avoid. Would you say that?
I think the stress that I see from students often comes because you've got work that you're trying to juggle. You might have family commitments, and then you really, 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 really want to get these exams as well. And there's all the work that comes with that. So I think it's a kind of combination of factors that lead to it being quite a stressful time.
Yeah, and I think that's right. And I think especially if you're working full time, it's like you've got a combination of goals you want to achieve, and like trying to maintain some semblance of a family life and social life is also a bit tricky when you're doing exams at the same time. But I think stress is like, I don't know whether you agree with me, Nikki, and please feel free not to disagree with me, but like people now feel that, I'm going to cut that bit. sorry. Some people might feel that stress is something to be avoided completely, but my view on it is that actually you can't really avoid stress, because stress is a part of your natural life, and it's like it's almost impossible to live a life without an element of stress. But the goal is to manage it. What do you think, Nikki?
Yeah, no, I'd agree that, you know, we all need a little bit of stress. We get that cortisol in the morning that gets us out of bed. So I think it's good to have these little bits of stress. I think it's when it becomes a problem, that's when it needs to, you know, some techniques or some help to address it. If it becomes a chronic thing which affects your daily life in particular.
Yeah.
And I've seen very, very anxious students, and in that case, I'd say, look, go and seek help from somebody to manage it in that case. So, I mean, the types of things I'm sure we'll talk about will be thinking about those kind of short-term, acute, if you like, stress, and how we can try and manage it. But it's keeping it on that even keel, which is tricky, isn't it? That balance.
It's always a balance. Yeah, it's always a balance. And so I think if I can we can maybe aim for 5 things we can talk about. So if I put in my first one, and then you can maybe agree or disagree with it, and add things in, really. So I kind of feel that a lot of student stress is self-inflicted in some way, because I kind of feel the way to avoid a lot of the stress is to be well prepared and put in the hours, right? So a lot of people who are stressed before the exam is because they've kind of left everything to the last minute. They've not really put in the hours of work needed. It's a bit like running a marathon. If you don't do the training, you're going to have problems when it gets to the marathon. So in the exam, the more work you can put in will actually, it seems like counterintuitive, but the more work that you put in can actually reduce your stress, because the better prepared you are, the less you will be worried about it. What do you think, Nikki?
Yeah, I think the point on preparation is really important. It's a bit like I don't know if you're a dancer, Maty, but if you're doing a dance show, you wouldn't turn up on opening night and be expected to do a performance for 2 hours. So definitely, I think that preparing part can be important. And again, I obviously give tax answers because that's what I know, but it sort of depends a bit on the student, because some will get so anxious and they will do like try and do 24 hours of study a day. And so that's kind of, and again, it comes to this point of balance, that doing nothing will mean that you're fitting too much in. If you're also going to try at the beginning and work every single hour, you're going to burn out before you get to the exam. So
sure.
it's finding for you as a student where that line is between making sure you get enough preparation and not either extreme.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think you do have those people who try to like cram everything in for the last 4 days before the exam, and it's not a really effective way of studying or remembering. So I think it's right. So I think the first thing we can come up with there is like preparation. How do you get prepared? I always tell people to buy the best course they can afford, and that if people like, your course is, I can find a cheaper course. But I sort of thought there's quite a lot of rework cost of failing. The cost of failure, in my view, is quite high. So you've got like not just the extra exam fee, but you might miss out on a promotion. You might, you're going to waste a lot of time in your life. That time wasted is kind of a cost to you as well. So be prepared by sort of buying the best course you can afford. So what do you think, Nikki, in terms of preparation?
And I think in terms of having a course as well, something that, I get students who self-study quite a lot, and something that they miss out on perhaps from self-studying and having materials is that kind of accountability. So if you're on a course where you've got a tutor who, it gives you that sense of accountability as well to help you. If you're struggling for motivation, which, let's face it, when we've got a lot of work and lots of things going on, that sometimes goes out a little bit. So having that support and guidance as well, I think, because I know you can study things on online courses with just the material. For some people, that's absolutely, what they need. But for when you need that little bit of extra support, especially a paper where you're having to apply a lot of concepts and understand some potentially tricky concepts, just having someone explain it to you can make it so much easier.
Definitely. And I think also, on all my courses, we have a little chat group and WhatsApp chat group. So it's kind of a good way, because I think that self-studying especially can be very isolating. You kind of feel like you're on your own and you're doing it by yourself. Whereas if you're in a sort of like chat group with other people who are doing exactly the same exam as you at the same time, having that ability to say, look, anybody need a study buddy is a really good kind of support mechanism that's there for you to help you, as well as like reaching out to your tutor. You can you're reaching out to your peer group, which is like you can support each other in a way, which I think is a really, really good thing.
Or someone goes, I didn't get this thing, and then you find actually everyone else didn't quite get it.
Exactly.
So
you think
nice.
It's not just you. Yeah, it's not just you. Exactly. So, Nikki, what's number one? Be well prepared. Is a great way of reducing stress. Buy the best course you can afford, and like try and build that network. What's your number two?
I think it's making sure that you notice if you're starting to get very stressed. So if I explain, sometimes you just find yourself all of a sudden you feel very anxious about things. You might feel very stressed, but it's trying to catch it before it gets to that point, so you can try and do something about it. So there are so many techniques, breath work, you can, use affirmations, you can do visualization, things that sort of bring you back to the moment. And sometimes that can be enough to just sort of ground you and reduce that sort of in the moment stress. That just sort of, but the key there is noticing when it's starting to happen, which can often be, take some practice. It can be a bit tricky, but finding what works is a technique.
Can you give me an example of an affirmation? What do you mean by an affirmation?
So affirmation, when I first heard of this, I was very skeptical, I'll be honest. But essentially, if you're telling yourself something which is not serving you, so for example, if you're on a reset, you might say, I'm a failure, I can't do SBL, for example. It's turning that around and going, well, I'm preparing myself better this time, or I'm putting in the hours, or when I see a tricky question, I now know I'm going to approach it calmly. So taking that statement which doesn't serve you, which doesn't help you, and turning it into something not rainbows and unicorns and isn't life amazing, but this is a positive step and it's how I can turn it around to help me to continue and not beat myself up.
Excellent. I really like that. So it's just like having that kind of almost like a mental focus, saying, "Look, I did fail, but actually, I'm addressing it now with the actions that I'm taking." So it looks at things in a more positive way rather than a negative way. And your visualization you mentioned, can you just give me? I kind of feel that I feel in life, Nikki, you need to have something to look forward to in life. So I think that I don't know whether that's the same as the visualization, but I kind of think I'm always kind of focused on the end point of like after the exam, there's a holiday there waiting for you and you can go on holiday and not worry about the exam. So I don't know whether that's the same thing. What's a visualization?
Yeah, well, it's interesting because there are lots of different ways that it can be used. You know, back in the day, you know, David Beckham was known for visualizing when he was going to take penalties and things like that. So you're putting yourself in that situation and imagining, okay, this is how I'll deal with this scenario. So often I might say to students, for example, you know, you're worried about the exam and maybe they have to go to an exam centre. They might be worried about buses not coming or trains not coming or forgetting, you know, if they need to write something somewhere or forget their wallet, or, you know, anything can go wrong and that can cause stress. So instead, just visualizing, walking yourself through each step of that process. And it could be that at each, you know, you're imagining a perfect scenario where it all happens beautifully, or sometimes if it doesn't, you know, cause people to feel too stressed, think about when it goes wrong, but not just, okay, it's awful and I'm going to fail again, thinking, well, what if the bus does turn up late? How can I try and make sure that that doesn't throw me off? And I was in London during tube strikes when I was doing my accounting exam, so it was a very real, how am I going to get across London if there are no tubes? And so I had my backup plan, right, I'm going to get there earlier, I'm going to do this, do that, do the other, so that when those things happen in reality, you're not, I mean, it'll still be stressful, don't get me wrong, but at least you've rehearsed it. So you're like, right, this is what I do because this is the scenario, I know what happens, this is how I can address it. And kind of reducing, a bit like, you know, the play or the marathon you talked about. If you train beforehand, you can better deal with the actual race.
I was at my exam center like so flipping early. I was like, the milkman's delivering the milk and I'm like, oh yeah, hello. You know, it was like I was there like 2.5 hours before because I was just so paranoid that it would be, you know, you work so hard for that point, and if the train's out, you've got to have a contingency plan. So just get there early was mine, you know. And I did my exams in Clapham, and I was there like super early. But anyway, I just couldn't cope with the fact that it's going to be like last minute, because I think it just doesn't put you in the right frame of mind for the exam as well. Okay, so we've got two, the affirmation and the visualization, which I think is a really good tip.